The sun had set hours ago over the sprawling city of Houston, Texas, casting eerie shadows over the deserted streets. In one of the city's shadier neighborhoods, a young woman named Rose paced nervously down a dimly lit alleyway. Her situation was dire. She had recently lost her job at a local diner and was struggling to make ends meet. With mounting bills and no income, Rose was on the brink of eviction from her small apartment. Desperate for money, Rose had turned to Craigslist in search of work. It was there that she stumbled upon a job posting from a man named Marcus, offering her $100 an hour to keep him company for the evening. Initially hesitant, Rose had eventually reached out to Marcus, hoping that this opportunity would provide the financial relief she so desperately needed. Rose couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. What kind of person was Marcus? What did he want from her? Would this be safe? But the prospect of earning enough money to pay her bills and avoid eviction outweighed her fears. Rose arrived at Marcus's address, a modest apartment complex on the outskirts of town. Rose nervously knocked on the door of Marcus's apartment, her heart pounding in her chest. As soon as she arrived at his address, she felt uneasy. The apartment complex was run down and seedy, and she couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. Marcus greeted her at the door, a sleazy grin on his face. He led her inside and poured her a drink, making small talk and trying to charm her. But as the night wore on, his demeanor grew more aggressive. He made inappropriate comments and tried to touch her, and when she firmly rejected his advances, he flew into a rage. "Give me my money back," he spat, his face contorted with anger. "You're wasting my time. You owe me for the hours I spent with you." Rose shook her head, her voice shaking with fear. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I came here to keep you company, and that's what I did. I'm not going to have sex with you, and I'm not going to give you your money back." Marcus's eyes narrowed, and he reached for a heavy vase on the table. Rose's heart leaped into her throat as he raised it above his head, ready to strike. But before he could, she darted out of the apartment and into the parking lot. As Rose fled from Marcus's apartment, she could hear his angry footsteps behind her. She ran as fast as she could through the dimly lit corridor, her heart racing with fear. When she reached the parking lot, she saw John's car waiting for her. She ran towards it, hoping to escape from Marcus's rage. But Marcus was not going to let her go so easily. He followed her out into the parking lot, screaming obscenities and making threats. Rose could see the hatred in his eyes and knew that she was in danger. As she reached John's car, she fumbled with the door handle, her hands shaking with fear. John saw her coming and quickly unlocked the doors, but before they could drive away, they heard the sound of gunshots. Marcus had pulled out a weapon and fired 4 shots into the car. Rose was hit by one of the bullets and fell to the ground. John was also hit and was severely wounded. The parking lot erupted into chaos as people screamed and ran for cover. Marcus fled the scene, leaving behind the lifeless body of Rose and a trail of devastation. John managed to call 911, and soon the police and paramedics arrived on the scene. They tried to save Rose's life, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead at the scene. John was rushed to the hospital, where he underwent surgery to remove the bullet. As the police arrived on the scene, the sense of tension and fear only intensified. Witnesses reported seeing Marcus fleeing the area in a state of panic, and it was soon revealed that he was a suspect in Rose's murder. The news of Rose's death sent shockwaves through the community, and the sense of sadness and grief was palpable. People were left reeling at the sudden and tragic lost life. The community was left stunned and horrified, struggling to come to terms with the fact that someone they knew could have committed such a heinous act. The subsequent events only added to the sense of shock and disbelief. Whatever happened next, it was unexpected and shook the community to its core. People were left struggling to make sense of what had happened, and the emotional toll of the situation was immense. The tragedy of Rose's death and the shocking events that followed would be felt for a long time to come, leaving a lasting impact on all those who were touched by the situation. The trial was a complete farce from start to finish. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Marcus's defense team argued that he had been simply defending his property against theft. They painted him as a victim who had been forced to take action against an intruder. Unfortunately, the jury was made up largely of firearms supporters, who bought into the defense's argument without question. They seemed to believe that Marcus had acted heroically in defending his property, even though the situation had not warranted such a violent response. As the trial continued, it became clear that the judge was also biased in favor of Marcus. He repeatedly made rulings that favored the defense and seemed more interested in protecting Marcus's rights than in ensuring justice was served. In the end, the judge ruled that Marcus was within his rights to use deadly force to prevent a crime, no matter how minor. All charges against him were dismissed, leaving many outraged and frustrated. Some argued that the case was a prime example of how the justice system failed to protect victims of violent crimes. Others pointed to the flawed laws that allowed individuals like Marcus to use deadly force with impunity. Whatever the case, it was clear that the outcome of the trial had left a bitter taste in many people's mouths. The news of Marcus's acquittal sent shockwaves through the community. People were outraged that a man could shoot and kill an innocent woman and go unpunished because of a loophole in the law. The case became a lightning rod for the debate over gun rights and self-defense limits. In the end, justice did not prevail for Rose. Her family and friends were left to grieve for her, while Marcus went free. It was a stark reminder that in Texas, the right to bear arms often trumps the right to life. The case also served as a warning to those who might be tempted to turn to Craigslist for quick cash. The dangers of such deals are all too real, and Rose's tragic death was a stark reminder of the risks involved. The death of Rose has had a lasting impact on the community, with many people calling for changes to be made to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. In the years since her death, there have been heated debates about the laws surrounding self-defense and the use of deadly force. Some have argued that the right to self-defense should be limited and that the use of deadly force should only be allowed when there is an immediate threat to life. Others have called for greater accountability and transparency in cases where deadly force is used, arguing that there should be greater oversight to ensure that justice is served. Despite these debates, for Rose's family, the pain of her loss is still very raw. They are left to grapple with the senseless violence that took her life and the knowledge that justice may never truly be served. The tragedy of her death is a painful reminder that even in a country that prides itself on freedom and justice, there are still those who are left behind, their lives forever altered by senseless violence and tragedy. Lily had always been a practical person. When she realized that her old car was just taking up valuable space in her garage, she knew that it was time to let it go. She had recently purchased a brand new car that she was excited to show off around town, but the old car had to go. Lily was not one to waste time or money, so she decided to use an online platform called Craigslist to advertise her car. She had heard good things about the website, and she was confident that she could sell her car quickly and efficiently using it. She carefully created an ad for her car, taking care to include all the relevant information that potential buyers would need. She included pictures of the car from different angles and provided a detailed description of its features and condition. After posting the ad, Lily patiently waited for a response. She checked her email and phone frequently, hoping to receive a message from an interested buyer. Despite her eagerness, she remained calm and composed, knowing that the right buyer would come along eventually. Days turned into weeks, and Lily began to worry that she would never receive a response. But just when she was about to give up hope, she got an email from a potential buyer who seemed genuinely interested in her car. They exchanged messages back and forth, negotiating a fair price and discussing the details of the sale. The man then asked if they could meet later that day to inspect the car and complete the purchase. Lily agreed to meet him in a public place, feeling that it was a safe option. They agreed to meet at a nearby park, and Lily arrived on time, but the man was nowhere to be found. Instead, Lily was approached by a teenage boy who introduced himself as the man's son. The boy seemed friendly and claimed that his father had been delayed but would be there soon. Lily was initially relieved to see the boy and thought that he might be able to help her with the sale. However, as time passed, Lily began to feel uneasy. The boy was acting strangely, and his behavior seemed suspicious. Suddenly, without any warning, the boy pulled out a knife and attacked Lily. She fought back as best she could, but she was no match for the young attacker, who managed to inflict fatal wounds on her. As Lily lay on the ground, gasping for breath, she couldn't believe what had just happened. She had only wanted to sell her car, but now she was fighting for her life. The boy, who had seemed so harmless, had turned out to be a ruthless killer. Lily's mind raced as she struggled to stay conscious. She wondered why the man who had messaged her hadn't shown up, and why his son had been there instead. She realized too late that she had made a fatal mistake in not being more cautious. As her vision began to blur, Lily thought of her family and friends. She had so much to live for, but now she was facing her last moments alone on the pavement. She tried to scream for help, but her voice failed her. After the attack, the boy fled the scene, leaving Lily lying on the sidewalk. Despite the efforts of bystanders who tried to help her, Lily succumbed to her injuries and died at the scene. The police were called, and an investigation was launched to find the person responsible for the attack. The police began their investigation by interviewing witnesses and gathering evidence. It was a shocking and unexpected incident that left everyone in the community stunned. The police worked tirelessly to identify the attacker, and their efforts paid off when they discovered that the boy's name was Ethan Walker. The police also found out that he was only 15 years old and had a history of violent behavior. Further investigation revealed that Ethan had a troubled past and was known to be involved in criminal activities. When Ethan was brought in for questioning, he confessed to killing Lily. He explained that he and his mother had used the online marketplace Craigslist to lure victims in the past. They would pose as customers, attack and rob people. The police were shocked to hear this and launched an investigation into Ethan's mother, Sarah Walker. They discovered that she was involved in the murders as well and was using her son as a pawn. As the investigation continued, more details emerged. It was revealed that Ethan was also connected to another murder that was committed while selling a phone on Craigslist. He had confessed to killing that victim as well. The brutal killing of Lily by a teenage boy using Craigslist as a means to lure her and other victims in the past sent shockwaves throughout the community and beyond. The media was quick to pick up on the story, and it became a national headline. News outlets across the country reported on the incident, highlighting the dangers of online marketplaces and the need for increased safety measures. The public was outraged by the senseless killings, and there was an outpouring of grief and sympathy for the victims' families. People demanded justice for the victims and called for stricter regulations and safety protocols for online marketplaces. The trial of Sarah and Ethan Walker, who had been accused of using online marketplaces to lure victims and kill them, was highly anticipated by the public. The trial took place over several months, and evidence was presented that revealed the gruesome details of the murders. The families of the victims were present in the courtroom throughout the trial, seeking justice for their loved ones. In the end, both Sarah and Ethan Walker were found guilty of the murders and were sentenced to life in prison. The sentence brought a sense of closure to the families of the victims, who had waited for justice for a long time. The tragedy would never be forgotten, and the community was left with a sense of loss and sadness. Despite the tragedy, the incident also had a positive impact on the community. It served as a wake-up call for people to be more vigilant when using online transactions, and people became more aware of the potential dangers lurking online. Many people took steps to protect themselves from potential harm, such as using secure payment methods and meeting in public places when making transactions. The case also led to increased awareness and safety measures for online marketplaces. Companies like Craigslist implemented new safety features, such as identity verification and background checks, to protect their users. The incident helped to create a safer environment for people using online marketplaces and social media platforms. In the end, Lily's death was a tragic event that brought about both sadness and positive change. It served as a reminder of the dangers of online transactions and the importance of being vigilant when using the internet. In 2022, there was a young woman named Emily who had been longing for a new cell phone. She had been saving up for a while, but the cost was proving to be too much for her to handle. One day, she decided to browse through Craigslist, a popular online platform for buying and selling goods, in hopes of finding a good deal on a cell phone. After some searching, Emily came across a seller who had the exact model she was looking for at a very reasonable price. She was thrilled about this opportunity and decided to contact the seller to arrange a meeting. The seller agreed to meet with her, and they set a date and time for the transaction. The seller invited Emily to come to his home to inspect the phone in person and finalize the transaction. Emily hesitated at first, but after some deliberation, she agreed. On the day of the meeting, Emily arrived at the seller's house, and he greeted her warmly. He showed her the phone, and she examined it carefully, satisfied with its condition. The seller then offered to buy her a cup of coffee, to which Emily agreed. However, after drinking the coffee, Emily suddenly felt sick, and before she knew it, she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she found herself in a dark room with the seller hovering over her, attempting to attack her. She screamed and fought back with all her strength, but the seller overpowered her and beat her severely. As Emily found herself in a state of shock and terror, her instinct for survival kicked in. Trembling with fear and with adrenaline coursing through her veins, she desperately scanned her surroundings for a way to break free from the seller's grip. With a surge of determination, she summoned all her strength to fight back. Emily's fists and feet became weapons as she landed punches and kicks wherever she could. She used every ounce of her adrenaline-fueled effort to break free from the seller's grasp. She wriggled, twisted, and pulled with all her might, using her body weight to her advantage. She used her elbows, knees, and whatever else she could to create enough leverage to break his hold. With sheer determination, Emily finally succeeded in breaking free from the seller's grip. She pulled away from him with a burst of energy, leaving him momentarily stunned. Taking advantage of the opportunity, she sprinted towards the nearest exit, her heart pounding in her chest. Her muscles screamed with exertion as she pushed herself to run faster, fueled by the overwhelming urge to escape the danger that lurked behind her. Her heart pounding in her chest, Emily raced through the dark and unfamiliar house, her mind a blur with fear and panic. She stumbled and tripped, but she refused to let anything stop her from escaping. She finally burst through the front door, breathing heavily and covered in bruises and scratches from the struggle. Without wasting a second, Emily pulled out her phone and dialed emergency services. Her voice shook as she recounted the terrifying ordeal to the operator, providing as much detail as she could about the seller and his location. She waited anxiously, fear gnawing at her, until she saw the flashing lights of the approaching police cars. The police arrived swiftly and took charge of the situation. Emily was taken to the hospital for medical treatment, her injuries documented as evidence. Meanwhile, the police conducted a thorough investigation of the seller's home, uncovering disturbing evidence of his past crimes. It was revealed that he had a history of preying on unsuspecting buyers and sellers in online transactions. Emily's bravery and quick thinking in reporting the crime helped the police piece together the seller's modus operandi, leading to his arrest. Despite the trauma she had endured, Emily was determined to see justice served. She cooperated with the police, providing detailed statements and testifying in court. The legal battle that followed was long and challenging, with the defense attempting to discredit Emily's testimony. But she remained resolute, supported by her family, friends, and the authorities. Finally, after a grueling trial, the seller was found guilty of rape and assault and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Emily was left with physical and emotional scars that would take time to heal, but she was grateful for the support she received. She used her experience to raise awareness about the dangers of online transactions and the importance of reporting crimes. She became an advocate for victims of assault and worked towards creating safer online communities. In the end, Emily's courage and determination paid off. The seller was brought to justice, and she found solace in knowing that he would no longer be able to harm anyone else. Her resilience in the face of adversity and her unwavering pursuit of justice serves as a testament to the strength of the human spirit. In conclusion, Emily's harrowing experience highlights the inherent risks of online transactions, especially when dealing with strangers in unfamiliar settings. It underscores the importance of reporting crimes and seeking justice, despite the challenges and obstacles. Emily's story serves as a powerful reminder of the need to prioritize safety in online interactions and to stand up against perpetrators of crime.